I like it when any video game accessory has the word Pro in it. This is the Atari 2600 Pro-Line Trak-Ball. This is anything but professional. This is amateur hour. This is a far cry from a real arcade trackball, but it's about as good as you're going to get for the Atari 2600. It's somewhat flimsy, it's light, so it easily slides around. The trackball itself feels like it's just barely sitting in there. It looks like a faded cue ball. It would be cooler if it was an 8-ball, but it's still an Atari 2600 trackball. The problem is that the 2600 was never really designed to be used with a trackball. While you can see that it has an arcade-style trackball, it does not feel like a real heavy-duty arcade machine. Feels somewhat flimsy. It has a bit of weight to it, and your fingers do grip it nicely, but the real problem with this is how it works with the Atari 2600, not in the actual build quality. It says Atari 2600 right on the front, which is always a nice thing. It has a textured plastic surface that does not get fingerprints, and even though the Atari 2600 controllers have one button, this thing has two buttons. But they both do the same thing. It's for right-handed or left-handed play. The buttons themselves really aren't that great. Actually kind of flimsy. See that? Now this thing is about 30 years old too, so this one sticks a little bit. The design's not bad. Your finger kind of sits in there and you can hammer away at the thing. It does work for games like Missile Command and Centipede. I'll talk about that in a moment. Here's a close-up look at the Atari 2600 and Pro-Line Trak-Ball. Here's a look from the side. You can see how far the trackball sticks up. If we look on the underside, has little rubber feet, but it's really not very heavy, so it just slides around on the table if you try to play it with one hand. This was manufactured by Atari in El Paso, Texas. How about that? There's also a serial number and an Atari logo and a mystery slot that you can put your finger into, and it's like the pain box in Dune. The Atari 2600 Pro-Line Trak-Ball comes with a standard Atari 2600 plug. Sadly, this does not work with the Atari 5200, but it works well with the Atari 7800. It does not have two-button support, even though it has two buttons. But you don't need two buttons to play games like Missile Command and Centipede on the 7800. Not that Missile Command is on the 7800, but Centipede is one of the best games to use with the Atari Pro-Line Trak-Ball. Centipede on the Atari 7800. I'm going to switch microphones. We're watching real gameplay of me playing Centipede on Atari 7800 with the Pro-Line Trak-Ball. Although the Atari 7800 does not have true analog support when playing Centipede with the trackball, it's not bad. The precision and the movement are not nearly as good as they are with the arcade machine and trackball, not even close. But the Pro-Line Trak-Ball does work better with the 7800 version of Centipede than it does with the 2600 version. It feels smoother and moderately more precise. I think that the game that benefits most from being played with the trackball is Missile Command for the Atari 2600, which plays on the Atari 7800. And it might just be my imagination, but I think it actually works better with the 7800 than the 2600. There's no reason why it should. Like I said, it may just be in my head, but playing this on the 7800 feels smoother for some reason. Maybe it's just the actual units, but Missile Command it's not a direct replication of playing it in the arcade. You can't just whip your cursor from one side of the screen to the other incredibly fast, but you do get more precision than you would with the standard Atari 2600 controller, and it also feels more like you're playing Missile Command in the arcades. It works with Centipede on the Atari 2600, which is actually the reason I bought it, but it doesn't work as well as you might expect. Accuracy is a major problem when you're moving the trackball slowly, trying to hit targets. You get a pseudo trackball feeling when playing Centipede, but it works better with the Atari 7800 version of Centipede. When playing the 2600 version with the trackball, it's hard to see this on screen, but it's very difficult to control the cursor when you're moving slowly. If you want to move your cannon beneath one of the blocks representing a mushroom, I find it's actually easier using a joystick. I prefer to play this game with the Sega Genesis controller than the trackball for the Atari 2600. I tried it with a few other games, like Firefly. That game sucks no matter what you play it with. And Yar's Revenge, it does not work very well. You're much better off playing Yar's Revenge, possibly the greatest Atari 2600 game, with a joystick. Or Atari controller, Sega Genesis gamepad. Anything but that. That doesn't work really well with Yar's Revenge. The Atari 2600 Pro-Line Trak-Ball does not require a separate power supply. It works right from the Atari 2600. This is extremely easy to find and inexpensive. Not surprisingly, these are not in high demand, and these will run you maybe 10 bucks on eBay, depending on the condition. It may not be the greatest controller out there, but it does improve gameplay slightly for Missile Command in particular. It also works well with Centipede and a few other games out there. Missile Command is the one that you might really want to check out the Atari Pro-Line Trak-Ball for. Be a professional Missile Command player. Wouldn't that be a fun job? You go into work each day and play Missile Command. Come to think of it, some people actually do that job. Let's just hope that they all wear helmets like that, sitting at work with some hot chick looking over your shoulder with missiles flying and radar screens. Damn, that looks like a fun job. It may say use with joystick controllers, but this lies. You can use the Pro-Line Trak-Ball. Do you think she has a name? She looks like she should be working at a diner.